It's never too late to get started on the new year, and for that reason, I'm going to go over my plans for my income streams for 2022. Coming up. Hey everyone, it's the Cocoa Nomad, and welcome back to the channel. And in this video, I'm actually going to get an early start on 2022 and sharing my plans for income streams that I am currently working on to have built and have income start flowing in 2022. Now, why would I start so early? Here we are, basically midway through 2021. And the first reason is I really do like to set expectations for myself, and I want to come in understanding what my goals are. I'm super clear on what it is that I want to achieve, what constitutes winning for me, what constitutes a positive outcome. And then the second reason is just simply preparation. Some of these things actually will take time, and I've already started a few of these. So basically, my upbringing, my family's from rural North Carolina. I spent a lot of my time growing up working in gardens or working in actual fields, doing things as side jobs or main jobs. Actually, when I was 14, it's the only job I could get was picking crops. So like picking tobacco, picking cucumbers for the local pickle company and things like that. So until I could get a proper job at a restaurant or something like that. So a lot of that is really sort of stayed with me, these lessons that I got from my grandpa and grandma in the garden, talking in the fields and just sharing. And one of those is really just sort of planting and preparing for a harvest, So we do this work early in the season and we're just like, why I'm out here in the sun and why do I have to pick this stuff or plant these seeds and pull these weeds all the time? And it's just basically preparation for the time of the year when we go back and we pick all of this stuff, we have this harvest, and then you have the food that we then prepare and freeze for the winter, and you sort of eat on that for a long time. And so I'm taking a similar approach here, that I want to make these plans and plant these seeds and have to tend to this garden, weed it, make sure that, it's getting the nutrients that it needs, water and all these things, so that at some point later, in this case, 2022, there are going to be some income streams more than what I've had in the past. So it's just really about growing. So let's go ahead and get started. So in this format, basically, I'm just going to share why I'm pursuing a particular stream and how I plan to prepare, how I plan to get there in 2022. The first one is merchandising, and I'm actually wearing an example of this. My Tabs in the Street, Spaces in the Sheets shirt, which I designed. It's just a funny programmer joke. I'm a software developer by trade. And one of the things that I did about 1.5 to 2 years ago is I created an account on Redbubble, and then I applied for Amazon merch. And once I got approved for Amazon merch, I started making designs. And right now, currently, there's a tier system within Amazon merch that tells you how many items that you can submit, how many designs you can put on here. And I'm currently at tier 100, which is the third level from the beginning, I think. So it's not very high. I'm not selling a lot. But it's fun. And for me, the why is it's just a nice creative outlet. If I think of a funny thing to say or a pun or something that I think is humorous or might work, I put it on a t-shirt and I get to play with design, because most of my career I've been a developer, and until I got into mobile app development, I really didn't get an opportunity to do any design. And so I'm still learning and getting better at design. My apps are still fairly simple in those designs, and I definitely lean on to other designers when I'm working on client projects or jobs and things like that. But I still want to grow that skill. So for me, it's a creative outlet. It's fun. It doesn't really make a ton of money, honestly. I've probably made right around $100 in total income since I've opened the account. At least that's just Amazon, probably another $20 or $30 from the Redbubble, but definitely less than $1,000, less than $200 actually at this instance. But I also don't put a ton of time into it. I'm not one of these people that you'll find on YouTube you can follow who really do treat this like a full-time business. They put lots of hours in. They're constantly creating new merch. I do it sort of seasonally. I get a bunch of ideas, I work on some stuff, and then I put it out there and then I leave it alone. So that's been my approach, and which is why I'm going first. It's one of the lower ones, and it's not passive by any means, but I don't put a ton of time into it. I really jot down a lot of ideas, and when I get around to it in a batch, out. And then the next category is investment income, and this is another one where I haven't really put a lot of time and money into recently. over the past few years, I've kind of gotten out of the capital market, sort of sold all my stocks and things that I owned, but I'm slowly getting back into it now. So I have like a small position in some places. But in this particular instance, I really want to focus on true passive income, something that I can put funds into and not worry about. And so my focus basically is going to be on interest income and dividend stocks. So there are lots of channels where people are actively investing in growth stocks and are looking for appreciation and things of that nature. And that's just not my focus. My time and energy and attention really needs to be in some other places. I've learned that you can overextend yourself mentally, and my mental capacity and attention capacity has really been reached. So I need a place where my target is essentially like minimum like 4% dividend return, and that's good enough for me. I'm not looking for great returns in this arena. It's just a place to park my money, savings, as it were, after I've paid all my bills and taxes and everything, and have a place for that to grow in the long term. Now that will probably change at some point. I'm pretty certain it will, but right now I just don't have the time, energy, and attention to put into anything that's a little more aggressive. The next one is one that I am putting more time and attention, and you're right here. We're right here. It's YouTube. So YouTube is one of the things that I'm getting more comfortable with, and I really do enjoy. Again, much like design, I'm not that great at editing and making videos, but I had a podcast, and I've been on podcasts before, so I had more experience in the audio space, even though I wasn't really editing there as well. Typically in a podcast, either my podcast partner or we have a manager that would edit the podcast that I was previously on. So my Cocoa Nomad podcast was the first time where I actually became responsible for editing. And I'm going through that very same learning curve with editing YouTube videos. You may notice, like, if you look at my thumbnails, you can tell I'm just getting started. You can tell with the content and the format. I don't have a lot of graphics. There's not a lot going on in terms of transition. I don't even have a fancy toolkit. So I'm using iMovie right now. I may at some point invest in some fancier things, but right now it's just enough for me to get into the flow of creating videos like this, making content, and just having essentially a dialogue, just like sharing my experience and sharing these things. So this year, I have two channels. So I have this channel, the Cocoa Nomad, and then I have a Swift UI MVP channel. There's actually a third channel, but that channel depends on another person. And we got off to a decent start, but their schedule is just not allowing for us to record on the third channel. Hopefully in 2022, we can return to actually creating videos on a more frequent schedule. But again, right now, I'm focused on my own time, energy, and attention and what I can do, and not having to depend on the actions of others. And so I can control that with these YouTube channels. So I'll be making more videos in terms of Swift UI programming, Swift programming, specifically with Swift UI. That's my focus because I really do enjoy it. And then here on this channel, talking about location independence and financial independence, travel, those types of things, remote work, because that's another thing that I love and I do. And I'm trying to stay in my lane and live at the intersection of my expertise and my passions. And if I feel like if I can do that, then I'm going to be okay. So the YouTube channels, more consistently putting out videos and more videos that are useful to other people, that are helpful, and trying to get both channels at least to the monetization stage by the end of the year. If not, it's not a terribly big deal. There are other strategies for monetization to make it an income stream. So, and I will be doing that as well. But the focus now is just to keep making videos, growing the channel, hitting those marks, and then seeing what happens. I'm actually really curious about both of the channels, what monetization would look like if I hit those numbers of 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours, and then going from there and building an audience and maintaining one. So I'm super curious about that and excited. The next one is digital products. And digital products, if you're not familiar, it can be anything from like templates that sometimes people sell templates for video makers or audio creators. They can be guides that are used for people for any type of thing, or test prep, things like that. So I've been working on a couple of things, and I have a guide that I'm launching in August, and it's getting closer, and it's a simple product. I have a guide that I did create that's a free download on my website, and that is when you go to subscribe to the newsletter, you'll get that. And that's specifically on choosing an optimal remote work location. Everybody doesn't work the same. Some people have trouble working from home. I'm home right now. And some people like to be in cafes. Some people need to be in a co-working space. Some people can work from the beach. And so I share the pros and cons and my experiences with each of those and how you can sort of make your own decision with that. So that's what that free guide is, but I'm working on a more detailed guide about picking a specific remote work location and building a life in that particular location. So we're gonna see how that goes as well. Super excited about it. I'm probably about 60 or 70% through that process and getting that ready. And I'll announce it on the channel here when it's ready. So the next one is in the terms of income streams is courses. So in addition to working on guides and templates, I'm actually working on a couple of courses. Now the courses that I'm starting with are in the programming realm. So these are courses around tools on the Apple platforms for Apple developers. If you're working on Mac OS or building Mac apps and iOS apps and watch apps, using some of those software tools and then building actual software, building programs. So I wanted to share my approach and just how I go about making fun apps that are useful. And I think it could be helpful for other people to have a process. There are other people out here, of course, that have courses, but I just have a different take in the way that I approach creating things that are fun for me, that I find useful, some of which I never even release in the App Store. I just use them myself because I just find them incredibly useful. And so the goal is to get at least 2 courses up and ready and into up on a site. I will be using Teachable and having those available by the end of the year. So again, prepping for the coming year. They'll be ready before then, honestly. I've been working steadily on getting those things out, but I wanted to set proper expectations. So if I get some income coming in from some of these things before the start of next year, then that's just a happy bonus. Like, I'll take it. But I'm not depending on it. I'm not setting that kind of expectation. I really just want to sort of, like I said, prepare the field, plant the seeds, water, weed, and get ready for the harvest to come in the following year. The next income stream is the one that has been my primary source for most of the last 5.5 to 6 years, and that is consulting. As a freelance developer, I do a lot of contract work with small startups and augmenting, teams and doing a lot of implementation, helping to do designs and delivering MVPs, which is why my channel is called, on the development side, the Swift UI MVP. I love making MVPs. I think it helps you sort of streamline and think about the essential thing that you want to launch with, the most value, the minimum viable product, or the most valuable product, most valuable player. It's a little sports crossover there, if you know basketball. But for me, it's super important. I do enjoy it, but my focus will be changing. And that'll be because of the final income stream for 2022. And I'm really wanting to be more focused on the consulting side. I have also started to do some consulting around remote work and travel. I've taken on a few people and been working with them this year. So I'd like to do some of that. I don't plan to do a ton of that because I tend to get really involved and it takes a bit of time and just mental energy and attention. So I tend to only work with like a handful of people, and that's pretty much all I can do at any time. But most people don't need, it's not necessarily like therapy where you be having a longer relationship. It's like get in, solve a particular problem, and then people usually have start to build a competence and confidence to go off and start to do things on their own. So, and that's my preferred method with any of these things. It's like, if I can help you along the way, I don't think, most people need a long-term relationship in these coaching scenarios or these consulting scenarios. It's like, let me get you to this goal and then move forward. But I will be focused more on the consultative side and less on implementation in regards to my software development work. I don't want to do more of that because my outlet is the course and the final income stream for 2022, which is a full-time job. I am returning to the company that I used to work for about 6 years ago, Team Snap, where we make sports team management and league management software. And as a huge sports fan and a former Little League primary school coach for a couple of years, coached basketball, it was just like, I just love being there. It's like something I saw and something that I saw a lot of value in. And I really missed working on something like that with a team. And I talked about that in my latest What I'm Working On video. going into more detail about the aspects of that are different than the aspects that I typically do in my consulting engagements, which are just smaller teams, smaller people. So I actually start that way before 2022. Actually, we'll be starting in about 3 or 4 weeks. Mid-August, I'll be back with the company and back on the team. So again, that's, but I'm setting the table for 2022. I have some long-term plans for all of these different streams, but in order to get there, I need to make sure that I'm setting the table properly. I'm setting proper personal expectations, and I'm putting the correct amount of effort to get there. And so that's what I'm working on for the remainder of this year. And then at the end of the year, I'll do an assessment. Now, I do assessments all along. And if you follow this channel, because I do retrospectives. Now, the change will be in these future retrospectives. I will talk more about these things individually. I'll dive into my progress on these things. Even if the retrospectives aren't weekly anymore, I'm thinking about changing to bi-weekly and then just hitting the high points and just where I am and the progress that I'm making there. So those are I think the 7 income streams for 2022. And I will share in a future video sort of my long-term goals for like target numbers and things like that. But I'm really still feeling a little iffy about that. I don't feel super comfortable talking about like how much money something makes, unless it doesn't make a lot of money, like the Amazon merch. Like, yeah, no problem. I made like, I think $13 last month with Amazon merch. But when the numbers start to get higher, I really get nervous about talking about the details of finance, because there's a lot of channels out here and people do that, and I get the transparency aspect, but I'm just not sure that that's for me. So drop a comment and let me know like your thoughts on that, because I really am kind of on the fence about it. I don't want to come across as a bragging person, and quite frankly, at this thing, it wouldn't be bragging because I don't really make a lot of money, if I'm being completely honest, across the board on any of these things. So anyway, if you've enjoyed this and want to see more of this, click the like button, hit subscribe. I will continue to do updates because I think the process and the work in growing these things is super important, and I'm more than happy to talk about all the details of that and share every little bit of that. So I may just like blank out the actual numbers at some point. But until next time, have an amazing time, and I will talk to you next time. Cheers.